Hello there, I'm Scott, and I'm doing another video response for Clair, LunariaClair. She did a video last week on her top 10 most epic death scenes in movies, and I wanted to do something similar. I'm not going to do the exact same thing she did, but top 10 deaths was an appealing topic for me. So it's not really on the top 10 Tuesday schedule, but of course I, felt like doing it, so here I am. She talked about movies such as Alien, Commando, Critters 2, Day of the Dead, Jaws, Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, Jurassic Park, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and RoboCop. If you want to hear more about which scenes, which deaths she's talking about, link to her videos in the description below. I have a few different categories here to cover, one of which is most shocking or unexpected deaths. But for those of you who don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't seen any of the movies, I'm going to save them for the very end so you can stop watching the video at that point. I've also got some cards here. Do my actual top 10 deaths in films. I'm going to hold each one of these cards up. So if there's a movie where you don't want to hear about what the death is, you can just lower the volume until I switch to the next card, or just sort of move the cursor on the bottom of the video player forward, until you see that next card come up, so you can avoid spoilers that way. Couple of honorable mentions. Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman in Die Hard. Tote, played by, I'm not sure who he's played by, but he's the Nazi who's dressed all in black in Raiders of the Lost Ark. E.T. dies, then comes back to life, of course, in E.T. HAL 9000, as he's being, switched off in 2001. I'm just like, yeah, Hal's gone. That's awesome. Also want to mention Total Recall. There's a scene in Total Recall where Arnold and Rachel Ticotin are having their brain zapped by the bad guys, and as Arnold breaks free of his restraints, he picks up a metal rod and jams it into one of the guys, and then there's a cutaway where we see the guy fall to the ground, and he's got this metal rod basically through his face. It's not a really clear shot. I think the ratings board wanted Verhoeven to switch it to a different shot, a less graphic shot, so it's a little hard to see, but you see just enough of it to make you go, oh man, that would be horrible. Everyone in the theater when I was watching that film really reacted strongly. There's a lot of really great deaths in that movie, of course, as there are in most Paul Verhoeven films. That one sort of stood out to me. Also, I wanted to mention, Claire mentioned in Commando, a guy has a lot of stuff happen to him in rapid succession when he gets killed, and that reminded me of both Under Siege. When Tommy Lee Jones gets killed, he gets a knife basically buried in his skull. His eye is squeezed until it bleeds, and then he's shoved headfirst into a computer monitor. That was pretty spectacular. Also, Cyrus Grissom, played by John Malkovich in Con Air. He's riding on the ladder of a fire truck and it smashes into something hanging overhead. He goes right through that, and he then falls onto some electrical wires, gets electrocuted, and then falls into this conveyor belt and gets pushed into this machine where a giant thing falls on his head and crushes his skull. That was a pretty spectacular death. Also, check out the Omen trilogy. There's a really spectacular death, at least one in each of those movies, and also the Final Destination series. That's always good for spectacular deaths right there. As for my top 10, these are not in any particular order. I've arranged them chronologically from oldest to newest. First I'm going to tell you what the titles are, and then I'll go through each one by one. Don't Torture a Duckling, Return of the Jedi, Full Metal Jacket, Reservoir Dogs, Timecop, Natural Born Killers, Seven, 12 Monkeys, Scream, and The Departed. So as I said, there might be some spoilers here if you haven't seen some of these movies. You want to lower the volume. The first one, of course, is Don't Torture a Duckling. It came out in 1972. And I saw this movie in the mid-90s when a friend of mine was showing me a lot of Italian horror movies. This was done by Lucio Fulci. He, along with Mario Bava and Dario Argento, were the masters of Italian horror and splatter cinema. And the scene that I'm referring to is when a character is basically thrown off of a cliff, and as he falls in slow motion, the rocks jutting out from the cliff basically rip the skin off of his face as he's falling. It doesn't look totally real. It looks kind of like a dummy falling in a controlled fall, but still, it's a pretty amazing looking death, and quite a concept. Actually, this friend of mine actually made a short movie in which he had a death sort of inspired by that scene right there. That's pretty cool. Don't Torture a Duckling is what it's called. Next, of course, when I got around to seeing movies in theaters as a kid, of course, Star Wars was very big with me. Return of the Jedi, of course, is the third of the classic Star Wars trilogy. And there's a scene in that movie where there's one character watching another character torture a third character, and he finally, at long last, says, you know, that's it. And he picks the guy up and he brings him across the room and throws him into a chasm. And we're like, finally, yes. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm talking about the Emperor here. The Emperor gets thrown into the chasm by Darth Vader. And this death actually takes on more significance if you take the prequels into consideration and how the Emperor sort of tricked Anakin into thinking the Jedi were bad, and then, you know, messing him up big time by sending him after Obi-Wan. And then all this time he's spent, you know, trying to get Luke to come over to the dark side, and then when he's watching Luke get tortured by the Emperor with the lightning bolts, and he's just like, okay, that's it, and picks him up and throws him up. I'm like, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, as a kid, I wasn't expecting Darth Vader to do anything nice, and I certainly wasn't expecting him to die later. I hated the Emperor. He's so creepy, so incredibly sinister. Full Metal Jacket is the next one. Full Metal Jacket has a scene in which a character basically commits murder in cold blood and then sticks his rifle in his mouth and blows his brains out. When I saw this, I guess it was probably around 88, so I would have been 13, and it was, no, 15, sorry, I was 15. I had to turn the movie off at that point because I was just so wrecked by this scene. I finished watching the movie sometime later. I mean, it was just really brutal up to that point, the way the character was treated. Of course, I'm talking about Vincent D'Onofrio, Private Pile, and he ends up, after he shoots the drill sergeant, he ends up killing himself. The whole movie is really fantastic, but that one's just like very, very grim. Very, very grim moment. And it stayed with me for a while. Next, of course, Reservoir Dogs. There's a whole bunch of great deaths in Quentin Tarantino's movies. Actually, I should mention some of the other ones here that I didn't before, but I'm going to get to that later. Yes, exactly. Shocking deaths. This is another sort of sudden death, and that's Michael Madsen's character, Mr. Blonde. He basically is about to kill someone, and then someone off camera who he didn't even know was awake at the time shoots him. You know, very, very sudden. It's a really, really good scene. The whole sequence is really good. The movie is fantastic. It's my favorite Tarantino film, and that's, you know, just a really, really great moment. Now, here is potentially the cheesiest of all, because it relies so heavily on obvious CGI, Timecop. Timecop has this rule. The characters obviously travel backwards and forwards in time. They're going into the past, trying to prevent guys or arrest them basically for having committed time travel related crimes. But the rule is if you encounter your younger self in a previous year, you can't make physical contact with him because that will create a paradox of some specific nature, and, you know, it will result in something very bad. And we see that happen. There's a character played by Ron Silver who accidentally comes into contact with his younger self, and the two of them sort of merge into this weird sort of it's just a very, very strange thing. Anyway, it creeped me the hell out when I saw it. Obviously, it's all computer graphics. The way they take the two images and sort of mush them up and add sort of like, you know, flesh bubbles or whatever, and everything just kind of goes haywire, and then he dissolves into a puddle like the Wicked Witch or something like that. Creeped me the heck out, because I like thinking about time travel. Have been ever since I saw Back to the Future and thought about, gee, wouldn't it be cool to travel in time, go backwards, go forwards, blah, blah, blah. This really sort of creeped me out, and it you know, it looks totally fake, but still the idea of it is pretty sinister. Yeah, I wasn't. I sort of, you know, had trouble sleeping after that. Actually, and it's crazy, you know, of all the deaths, of all the horrible deaths, that's one that's just like, I don't know, obviously fake, but still even more creepy. Here's an interesting one. This one actually didn't come from the film itself, but from one of the deleted scenes. Natural Born Killers. There was a scene that took place as Mickey and Mallory are on trial. that was cut from the film. But I knew it was supposed to be there because I read the paperback before seeing the film. I read it just a couple of days before the movie came out. And so I was really excited to see the scene because it was, you know, a cool scene. But it wasn't in the movie. It wasn't until the video came out with the deleted scenes that I got to see it. And that is Ashley Judd getting stabbed to death on the witness stand because Mickey Knox is cross-examining her. And the music is really, really great in the scene. The build-up to it is great. There's a cutaway of Tom Sizemore that is just one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Just an incredible death scene. Yeah, it's horrible for her, but man, what a great scene. What a fantastic scene. Next. Seven, of course, my favorite David Fincher movie. Man, I was blown away by this movie, and a big part of that was the ending. At the end of the movie, John Doe, played by Kevin Spacey, reveals that he, while Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman were at work trying to solve his murder spree, he paid a visit to Brad Pitt's wife, Gwyneth Paltrow, and killed her, and cut her head off and stuck it in a box. And so he's trying to provoke Brad Pitt into killing him, basically, is in retribution. Of course, this would make this the seventh of the murders, would make it Wrath, basically, of the seven deadly sins. And Morgan Freeman tries to explain this, of course, to Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt is so distraught that he ends up shooting him anyway. I was sitting there going, please don't, please don't, please don't. You're only going to, you know, succeed in helping him complete his series. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, no, I can't believe he did it. That's terrible. The winners are the losers are the winners. It's just horrible. But I love the movie. Love the movie and that one. Again, not overly gory. You see it sort of from a distance. Another scene that really isn't like spectacularly bloody or anything like that, but is still quite emotional. 12 Monkeys. In 12 Monkeys, this one came out just a little, you know, ways after 7 actually. Another movie that Brad Pitt's in, but he's not in the scene, of course. Bruce Willis, younger Bruce Willis, sees his older self that has traveled back in time die right in front of him. And as Bruce Willis is laying there in the airport terminal, Madeline Stowe realizes that the younger Bruce Willis has seen this happen. He's been talking about this dream that he had, or this memory that he had, of seeing a guy die like this. And she looks around and she spots a little boy across the terminal in the airport. And the music comes up and the boy looks at her and she looks at the boy, and man, I just like bawling like a baby during this scene. Great movie, terrific movie, my favorite Terry Gilliam movie, and yes, quite a memorable death. Next, Scream. I really would have liked to see Drew Barrymore get a nomination for supporting actress for this movie because she gets so emotionally involved in what's happening here. She's being terrorized by this guy on the phone. This is the first of any of the Scream phone calls. And it really, really set a high bar that practically nothing else in the whole series could meet, not even the first movie. She's so terrified. And it's not really her getting stabbed in the end, but just everything leading up to that. You know, her increasingly becoming frightened and distraught and screaming and crying, you know, telling this guy on the end of the phone to please stop terrorizing her and threatening her and everything like that. You know, just an amazing scene in general. Finally, The Departed. I actually saw the original. The Departed's a remake, and I saw the original on video well before The Departed came out. And what happens in The Departed is exactly the same as it happens in the original, and yet I was still shocked when I saw this one. I should have seen it coming, but still, it was amazing. Basically, it's when Leo gets killed in the elevator. I saw this in the theater on opening weekend, and you should have heard, if you didn't see it in the theater, you should have heard the gasp that went out from the entire audience when they saw this happen. You know, he's just about to walk out of the elevator, the doors open, all of a sudden from off-screen a gunshot, and boom, that's it. Leo's done, man. Leo's done. That's crazy. So yeah, that's definitely one of the most unexpected, shocking deaths. And now, here's a few more. Wash from Serenity. Coulson from the Avengers, although actually Thor should have seen Loki behind him at that point, unless Loki was making himself invisible, because he could do that, as well as replicate his image elsewhere. Other Tarantino movies, Shoshana from Inglourious Basterds. Thinks she kills the guy, and then the body turns around and blasts her away. And of course, Vincent Vega, the Travolta character in Pulp Fiction. That was unexpected, especially since I knew he had more scenes left to go because the movie is out of order chronologically. Not many people like X-Men The Last Stand, the third X-Men movie directed by Brett Ratner. As particularly, they don't like the fact that Xavier gets killed, but I am not overly familiar with the characters from the comics, and I didn't really have expectations as to what would happen there. So when Patrick Stewart gets disintegrated by Jean Grey, as she's unable to control her powers, that to me was a big unexpected death, and certainly somewhat emotional. He's coming back, of course. I don't know how they're going to explain how that happened for the next X-Men movie, but yeah, that was good. I like that a lot. A really, really strong death scene. And yeah, I mean, people just, I guess some people just feel cheated just because of the character should be around for the whole series. You have guys like James Bond and Batman. They'll never die in any of their movies. Never, okay? In a movie like X-Men, to have a character like Xavier die, for real, is a big deal, and it was good. I'm glad they did it. Also, I want to mention a movie which just came out very recently, but not many people have seen, called Pompeii. It hasn't done that well, so I'm gathering most of you watching this video probably haven't seen it. There's some unexpected deaths in that movie. I figured at least the two lead characters, the young guy and the girl who are in love and are fighting to be together, would make it out at the end. But no, everyone, absolutely everyone gets consumed by all that lava and ash clouds in the end. And as they're riding as fast as they can out of the city, the cloud is pursuing them, and they get off the horse, and the girl basically just slaps the horse and urges it to just run off without them. And I'm like, wait a minute, you gotta be kidding me. They're going to kill off these characters too? Everyone's going to die in the whole movie? Wow, that's something. And that was unexpected, so I gotta give it props for that. I think that Pompeii will find a good audience that appreciates it in the future, probably on video. People like, more tragic love stories, people like Titanic or just movies in which not everything is okay in the end. They're not happy together in the end, because oftentimes those are more memorable films than the ones where everything is hunky-dory. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to check out Claire's video, and of course I'll have another Top 10 Tuesday video tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's Tuesday. We'll see. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.